Courtney joins us. She did great work, by the way. First Take and everything this week. She was back at practice today, and she joins us on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline. Great work on the big network this week.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
You got it. So what is the latest? Fill us in on Nate Davis, and what do you believe his status is going to be going forward as far as keeping his job and keeping his roster spot?
It's pretty concerning, I think, at this point, where he returned to practice Sunday after more than a week sidelined with this injury. And I remember watching him Sunday. He was in pads. He goes through stretching. He goes through individual work. And then all of a sudden, as they're about to start doing team drills, he jogs around the field. He goes over to the training room and he's in a conversation with the trainer. And then all of a sudden he takes his pads off. So you're thinking, okay, logically, they're not throwing a guy back out there after a week, 8 days at that point. He hadn't been doing anything. He was in a ramp up period. And from what I was told Sunday, after practice, there was no real issue, that this was supposed to, he was on track to be where he needed to be. And then today we hear from Matt Eberflus, the second time Flus has talked about Nate Davis this week, that Davis actually had a setback on Sunday, and now he's got to start back over at the ground floor and trying to get himself back on the field, which is kind of interesting. I mean, injuries pop up all the time. Things can happen, but he's known about this now for a couple of days. And remember, I believe it was Tuesday, when Matt Eberflus talked about, like, he doesn't buy into the notion that just because, you lose your job just because you're injured, that's not always the case. I mean, that is a loud, direct message that's being sent to Nate Davis. But even then, he knew that Davis had suffered the setback following Sunday's practice, and, didn't reveal that until 4 days later, which happened earlier today. So I think it's a big concern for this team, because they've been trying to solidify that right guard spot, and Davis's absence has thrown a wrench into their plans, to where the center competition was starting back up, and now it's got to go back to where it is. Especially, I mean, you can think what you want during team drills. Like, who are they using at center and at right guard during 2 minutes, during situational drills? Like, the gotta have it moments. That's who they think is their best bet. And right now it's Coleman Shelton at center and Ryan Bates at right guard. But this is not good for Nate Davis if he's not able to get past this week to week now injury and get back on the field, because he's going to miss game time in these preseason games, which is critically important for a rookie quarterback to be playing with the line that he's likely to be playing with, expected to be playing with in the season. And I think the Bears just given the messaging that we're hearing from the coaching staff, from Matt Eberflus, like, forget what Shane Waldron said the other day. Very clearly, Flus feels differently, as emphasized by what he has now said twice about Nate Davis. I think his job is in pretty significant jeopardy if he can't get himself back on the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Courtney, I mean, this could all resolve itself by the time September comes around. And that could happen. I'm not 100% confident that it will happen. But if we project out, like you said, at some point you have to have some continuity for your young quarterback. If it's Shelton at center and Bates at guard, and that's the way they're going to start the season, could you envision a scenario where they would just completely move on from Nate Davis? I know that it would be a sunk cost, because I don't believe, they pay his salary. I don't think there's any dead money on it. But can you envision a scenario where they would just move on from him when camp ends?
The only reason I don't know if they would is because, do you have a better backup, at least like a prospect of a backup, than somebody who you brought in expecting to be your starter? Now, you'd have to figure out, like, is Nate Davis, is he okay with that? Frankly, I wouldn't give him a choice, because they did bring him in to be a starter and they have not gotten the return on investment. So I wouldn't give a damn about how you feel about it if I'm the front office, if I'm the coaching staff. But it will come down to the other players, like the Matt Pryors, the Jatari Carters, all of those guys that they have as either swing tackles or backup offensive linemen. If they feel that health and play, style of play, what they've shown during camp, is better than what they have in Nate Davis, you've given this experiment long enough to where I think you'd be okay cutting your losses. Now, I know they were happy with him going into the time that he was injured in that Saturday practice. I believe that was the first one that we saw in pads. So it wasn't like this has been, he had like a terrible camp from the start and then he gets injured and it's just all been bad. It wasn't. He was stable for about a week, which I know doesn't seem like a long time. But
I'm not laughing at you. I just like laughing at the concept of it. Yeah.
It's a sad reality that like a week was stability with this one player who was just not given them. It's been tough. I mean, he didn't practice much in the spring. He wasn't around for some of the OTAs, and he's there and he's not practicing. That has to be taken into account, like the overall body of work, not just training camp, for whether you can rely on this guy.
Right.
Bottom line.
Right. And that's why I was not happy with him not showing up to OTAs. I don't get him the benefit of the doubt.
No, and we heard today that Bates left practice for whatever reason. Courtney, can you fill us in on where he's at? I mean, was this just something that wasn't injury related? What was the situation?
We didn't get an update on his injury status. I mean, what we know for the game is that the available starters will play. So, that's whoever's healthy on the offensive line. We did see it was, 2-minute drill today. Darnell Wright was not in. So he got rolled up on, my understanding was yesterday in practice, but he was back today for some of 11 on 11. And then Larry Borum was at right tackle. So we'll see how they want to handle that in Buffalo, but you should be good to go with Braxton Jones, Kevin Jenkins. And I would imagine Coleman Shelton probably gets the start based on the combinations that they're using right now up front. And, I don't know if the Bates thing was serious. I didn't really think about it much in the moment, and we didn't, get any update on if that's going to be something that causes him to miss time. But their depth is being tested right now, and it's reminiscent of last year, just because this was a theme last year. The constant shuffling that they had to do on the offensive line. You can't prevent injuries, but it does kind of have that same sort of feel that kind of the here we go again. Having to see this many different players, move in and out of the lineup. And, I don't think Caleb Williams would play if the line was like that bad. So I would imagine they're probably going to have everybody they had today in Buffalo in order for Caleb to be playing at all. So I think that there's probably not too much concern about any other injuries other than what we've talked about.
How much do you believe they want Caleb Williams to play? And will it be real football where they're going to let him throw the football around a little bit?
So I didn't have a chance to ask Matt Eberflus this today. It was a quick press conference, but he talked last week about being in conversation and in touch with D'Amico Ryans, kind of coming up with a similar plan for what each team was going to do in the Hall of Fame game. I would imagine that's probably similar with Buffalo and him and Sean McDermott, and just trying to figure out, all right, how long are you going to play your starters? And what we heard from McDermott today was that Josh Allen and the starters in Buffalo will play about a quarter. So I would imagine that's probably the range that Eberflus is talking about with Caleb Williams and the starters, that are healthy and available both on offense and defense. That makes sense for a first time out there, but because if you think about, let's say they go down and score right away, and then he pulls them off the field and he puts Tyson Bagent, second team offense, out there. What did you really accomplish with that? You're getting a vanilla look, a base look from a defense. You need to get these guys reps, and what Eberflus has been adamant about: no pre-snap penalties, no operational errors. So that's going to take more than one series for this offense to accomplish. So I feel like a quarter during what Buffalo is going to do is probably the safe bet for this offense.
Courtney, kind of a big picture question for you. Have we had a single practice in camp where the offense clearly won the day? And if the answer to that is no, would you be concerned by that?
I can't recall a day where I walked away thinking from start to finish the offense dominated. There have been moments, though. I mean, there's been 2-minute drills where they've been far better than the defense. And sometimes you're like, okay, is the defense operating at full speed? I mean, there have been some moments. Obviously, the pass rush can't hit Caleb Williams, so it's hard to gauge. But there've definitely been really good moments from this offense, but also some really poor moments. And I think you've got to sift through what's being said about, hey, it's the preseason. This is the time for him to make mistakes. This is the time for him to learn, and kind of rice through that stuff to figure out, are these same issues happening on a day-to-day, on a play-to-play basis? I mean, there was times in the during team period, during 2-minute drill, where Caleb is forcing a ball that he probably shouldn't have, and it was Kevin Byard who picked off. He had the second interception today, and I believe it was Elijah Hicks who had the first one. I'd be curious to see what the practice tape says, but it looked like similar issues on both plays. That's the stuff you don't want to see. But you look around the league and you hear, wow, Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown an interception in practice yet. You can't apply that to a rookie quarterback who is still learning this offense with a shoddy offensive line right now and an entire unit that's learning an offense. And you don't expect it to look perfect, but you do hope that, like, come next week when they have the joint practice and they're going to see a different defense, that there will be days where the offense looks better and can stake claim to, hey, we had a really good day. We were consistently the better unit from start to finish. Because I don't know if you're going to be feeling great if you don't leave the preseason with that sort of that sort of carrot that you've reached.
I just think there are a lot of people out there that expect, because the infrastructure's good, we've got Caleb Williams, that it's going to be this seamless transition into a world of offense that we've never seen before.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and we said it last year. We're going to be honest with you with Justin Fields, and the Justin Fields fan club got mad at us for telling the truth. And we said then, we'll tell you the truth when the next quarterback. I got to be honest with you. I've seen some really good moments from him, but overall as an offense, I think that they've looked very uneven.
I do too. And that's what annoys me about the national pundits who want to weigh in on the Bears and start giving Super Bowl projections for this team, or thinking, oh, they could be the second best team in the NFC North. The same issues with this group right now are the same issues from last year, which is the offensive line right now. CJ Stroud and those expectations and why he was able to get to a 10-win season as a rookie last year. Not saying the offensive line was that much better, but he also had a Pro Bowl left tackle protecting his blind side. Like, there's a lot that goes into this that's more than just the flashy names of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, a good backfield, Montez Sweat, all of these other players. That's not being talked about enough. And if I've not left a day of practice thinking the offense really, really looked good today. They were completely locked in the whole time. There's moments, and again, like 7-on-7, 1-on-1s, you can only take so much from those drills that we see. Sometimes it's skewed towards the quarterback. Sometimes they're going at walkthrough speed and the offense looks okay because the defense isn't doing anything to put pressure on them. It's all designed to get everybody the amount of work and reps that you need. But I just think that they've got to start putting. I'm a big believer that how you practice is a big indicator of how you're going to show up in games. And if it looks sloppy in practice, good chance that it's probably going to not look so great when the Tennessee Titans come to town if you can't get the execution as close to perfect during a practice.